For now, I want people to understand this. Money will never solve all of my problems. I can never move back into the house that I called home. I will always have to be careful about where I go and who I choose to share my name with. I miss my home, I miss my neighbors, and I miss my name.
That was Ruby Freeman, a former Georgia election worker, addressing the public last December after a jury found Rudy Giuliani liable for making defamatory statements against her and her daughter following the 2020 election. At the time, the jury ordered that Giuliani pay $150 million to Freeman and her daughter, Shaye Moss. But this week, things got even worse for Rudy Giuliani. A judge has just ruled that he also needs to give them some prized personal possessions, like some signed sports memorabilia, 26 watches, furniture, a vintage Mercedes that was once owned by the actress Lauren Bacall, and his New York City penthouse. If I were them, I would immediately sell the furniture and buy new furniture because gross. I would get the car detailed and reupholstered. The sports memorabilia, I don't care about that stuff, so I'd probably just sell those too. The penthouse is supposed to be sold, but it's probably for the best. It would need to be gutted and deep cleaned, maybe even exercised. It would have been fun to see what they did with the place though. They could have done an AD home tour. I would have watched that. Anyway, times are tough for Rudy, but it's hard to feel sorry for him because he is laying in a bed of his own making. He chose to make things up about these super regular people who are just doing their jobs. He chose to associate himself with the likes of Donald Trump, a man who has tanked his once decent reputation and legacy while still refusing to pay him for legal services rendered. Yes, Trump still owes Rudy Giuliani $2 million in legal fees, but Rudy won't ever see that money because even if and when Trump pays him, that money goes straight to Freeman and Moss.
Why is it that the only lawyers whose law offices get broken into are Donald Trump's lawyers? Remember, they went and got my iCloud account. I'm a lawyer.
And back in December, when the nearly $150 million ruling came down, Giuliani said, "I don't regret a damn thing. The absurdity of the number underscores the absurdity of the entire proceedings. I am quite confident when this case gets before a fair tribunal, it'll be reversed so quickly it'll make your head spin." Well, almost a year later, that hasn't quite happened. Even as Freeman and Moss have been awarded all of this additional stuff on top of the original $150 million, they might still get more. Giuliani has some World Series rings that are being contested, but his son says that his father gave them to him, so they're no longer Rudy's to give up. Also, Freeman and Moss might get Giuliani's condo in Palm Beach, Florida, but that decision is technically part of a separate lawsuit where Giuliani was accused of trying to falsely claim the condo as a residence so he could get a homestead status for it and evade his creditors. But these two working-class black women in Georgia who Giuliani clearly did not respect enough to not completely dismantle their lives and threaten their safety with lies that were completely made up and self-serving have cost him everything. And I'm not just talking about his money and his property and his stuff. Giuliani has lost his dignity, his integrity, his legacy, oh, and his license to practice law. He is now just a broke, formerly glorified and celebrated mayor who is without friends, without a job, and without the clout, importance, and influence he may have once enjoyed.
Justice Department and the FBI at the highest levels are no longer the creature of a government of laws. They're now the state police, as if we were in East Germany, the Soviet Union, or current China.
Well, we have to kind of close this up.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Rudy.
But I'll do it again. You know, if you want to do another one in a few weeks, I like you. You have no idea. You said nice things about me. You have no idea how much I admire you guys.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Rudy. It must break your heart to see this happening with our Department of Justice.
Oh my gosh! If you got me enough into that, you'd probably have a nice video of me crying.
Yeah.
And I know this is a generalization, but people like Rudy Giuliani seem to have no problem using people who they deem to be insignificant as means to their own selfish ends. At the end of it all, you have to ask Rudy, like Thanos, after he blew up half of a planet, what did it cost? His later in life association with Donald Trump cost Rudy Giuliani everything. Anyway, after the initial ruling, Giuliani tried to file for bankruptcy, but the judge dismissed the case, citing Giuliani's uncooperative conduct and failure to provide an accurate and complete picture of his financial affairs. With the dismissal of the bankruptcy case earlier this year, Freeman and Moss were able to pursue what's owed to them. He hasn't paid anything to them yet, but he is ordered to turn over the penthouse next week. In response to the order, Giuliani's lawyers had this to say in a statement. They said, "Stay tuned. When the judgment is reversed in the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., these plaintiffs will be required to return all of this property to Mr. Giuliani. We repeat, stay tuned." Anything to avoid any sort of accountability for one's actions. But this judge is not playing around. Giuliani had asked to keep his grandfather's watch because it held sentimental value, but the judge said he would only consider it if Giuliani could prove that the watch was worth less than $1,000. Rudy couldn't do it. The judge said, quote, "The court also does not doubt that certain of the items may have sentimental value to defendant, but that does not entitle defendant to continued enjoyment of the assets to the detriment of the plaintiffs to whom he owes approximately $150 million. It is, after all, the underlying policy of these New York statutes that no man should be permitted to live at the same time in luxury and in debt." Responses to this most recent ruling are highly partisan, as can be expected. Roughly 75% of Republicans still believe the 2020 election was stolen, so of course they aren't very sympathetic to the plight of these election workers. Presumably, they're the ones who have been hounding these women with death threats, etc. So on the right, people are saying that this is all just a ploy for Black women to take hard-earned money from the white man, or that this innocent man is being taken to the cleaner simply because he is a Trump-supporting Republican patriot. Rudy is, according to them, the real victim here. Conversely, on the left, people see it as the distribution of justice, and they see the weight of the ruling as necessary to deter similar behavior in the future. People in positions of wealth and power cannot be allowed to trivialize and endanger the lives of those that they deem to be lesser than themselves. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.